Okay, here we have a setup. I'd like to see a little bit more hip shift towards the target here. He's a little too straight up and down. Notice how level his shoulders are. And the only way you can do that is by bending the left arm, because the left hand is much higher than the right hand. Therefore, the left shoulder should be higher than the right shoulder. So I'm going to work on the little hip shift. Nice low takeaway. Pretty good there. Notice the swing guide is staying pretty much on point. Look at the width he's getting there. Very nice. Very nice. Now if he stopped there, he's going to be in a good position. He did. Start down into the shot. Now you see we've got a pretty stationary right leg there. The initial down move should be the right knee moving, not the left knee. We want the right knee to move towards the left knee, and it doesn't ever get going. So he's sort of stuck there. And he never gets it moving through. And now he's got that left elbow, which started out bent, really bent. See that? Really bent. And it's pulling that left elbow in behind him. So he's not getting any good width down the target line. So if we look at the width of his swing here versus how wide he is here, we want that same look on this side too. And he's not there because he's a little bit stuck. So we're going to work on a drill for him to get him moving better to that lead side. Okay, we've brought in the power line. Let's see if the lower body moves under the upper body to that power line. Pretty stable takeaway. Now both knees are pointing in the wrong direction. This knee here needs to be pointed that way a little more knock-kneed, because we're really not getting any coil. And you can see he's using the swing guide to get a nice hinge there in the wrist and try to keep the left arm nice and straight. Let's see how long he keeps that on the club. Still there, pretty good. Now it's leaving the hands there. If we could keep it on a little longer, he's going to do better. Notice the right knee isn't moving too much towards the left knee, and he's not getting it all to the power line. At impact, we want his whole lower body to have shifted into that power line so that his lead thigh is past that power line at impact, so he's not scooping with the right hand under the club. See how the right hand is under the club there? We don't want that. Let's go on through to the finish, and he's kind of pivoting on his back foot. You can see that how the right heel is spinning out behind him. Work on the weight transfer. From this angle, it's not easy to really see it, but I can tell that he hasn't built that good triangle structure of the shoulders and the arms. We've got a little too much bend here in the right arm, and the hands are pretty high. They should be pushed a little further away from his chin. Let's watch the takeaway, see if the club doesn't kind of dart too much to the inside. Let's get himself ready there. Actually, that's not too bad. Now it goes too far to the inside, but there, right there, pretty good position. Let's see him drive into the shot now. That's pulling up out. See right there, he pulled up out of the shot right there. Let's do that again. Pulled up out of the shot. That's why he's missing. He's not hitting as good as he could. Pulling up and out. Standing up too soon. We want the downswing to be everything moving down to that golf ball, not everything moving up out of the golf ball. I've placed a little wedge under this golfer's right foot to get him the feeling of being braced against that foot so he doesn't sway back to the back leg. He just turns around the back leg to make his takeaway swing. Well, you can see, even with the brace there, instead of maintaining his head right there, watch what happens. Shifts way out to the outside, slides away from the ball a long ways, and now he's got to try to find his way back to the ball. Then he stands up, and he's going to struggle to get back to position. See how he's way up out of that circle at impact? And he throws the club nicely and gets a pretty good extension, but we have way too much head movement. Picture the head as the tetherball pole and the golf club as the tetherball. We want it to swing around that pole on a nice smooth circle. Got a pretty good setup here. What you're going to see is limited flexibility, and not enough stretching ahead of time is going to make him stop his backswing awfully early in the swing. Gets about there. See how it's barely to waist high. Now, if that's all the further he's going to go, we'd still like him to try to get his club pointing to the ground, or in what we call the L position. You can see the L described by the yellow line in his forearm. That'll give him quite a bit more distance because the club will have longer to travel, so we can gain more acceleration. Let's watch him turn through the shot. Not bad, turns through the shot. See the droop in the club, the power he's generating there. So we got to get him a little bit more hip shift into the shot so he can get this foot here up off the ground and not put so much strain on his back and his right knee. We need to get the hands hanging a little more down from the shoulders instead of out such a straight line. It creates a swing path that's very hard to match, both going back and coming back to the ball. Let's go ahead and watch the swing in slow motion. And probably what we'll see yet, that's the typical thing. When the hands are too high, we end up with the clubs getting way in behind us, pointing way off in that direction instead of straight up the target line. Let's see what happens if he goes over the top. Here at the top, he will be like most everybody else who stands stooped straight. His hands now, I'm predicting, are going to come that way. Let's see what happens. Make me wrong. Here we go. Oh, there they go, right over the top and out to in. Manages to get pretty good contact, but he's going to be better off if he can get those hands down a little lower, take the club more to the outside on the way back, and hit into out so he doesn't finish quite so high. The hands are too high here, creating a straight line down the forearms to the shaft of the club. Remember, we're looking for a 144-degree angle from the forearms to the shaft of the club, and we want the hands hanging under the chin. You can see those are quite a ways out. Plus, we got a little too much flex in the knees. The knees are actually out past the toes of her foot, and we don't need that. We need to be over the shoelaces. So let's watch the takeaway here. Not too bad. Nice rotation coming into the shot. Back to level. And a little pass. We don't want it to get that far, especially with an iron. And then she's folding up. Now she's gone way too far. Both elbows down were bent. The left elbow's bent to 90 degrees, and it's supposed to be straight. And you can see here that the right elbow is way past the 90-degree point. And that's where it needs to stop, is at 90 degrees for maintaining maximum control. And we're going to drop the club down to the inside. Not too bad. She's going to pull up a little bit here and gets through the club. But notice that the right hand stayed underneath the club too long. And we don't turn through the shot. I think if we can get her posture a little better, her athleticism is going to have her be a great ball striker. We had a golfer that was bent over too far. Now we have a golfer that's standing up too straight. And what this will promote is a lifting up of the hands rather than a swing or a turning, just a swing back with the club. Let's clear this out of the way and watch if she doesn't just lift her hands straight up. See how they lift them? And notice that the club face is dead shut. We'd like to have the face of the club being on this line here, parallel with the forearm, but it's straight, flat like that. So let's get that out of the way. And then she's going to be in a position where she's folding over her left arm real badly, left wrist badly, standing straight up. And now she's going to come down on the ball kind of like a chopstick, like an axe, and pull away. Notice how she's hitting it way out on the toe because her elbows are all pulled into her sides. She's not rotating her hips at all. So we got to get her just to feel a little bit more comfortable swinging the club. And then she'll get her distance back and she'll feel better. Okay, looking at his setup, we need to get his lower back pointing more towards 1 o'clock. It's kind of pointing towards noon almost. We could straighten the knees just a hair, get the butt up and behind him a little bit more so that the arms can be hanging down from his shoulders instead of kind of sticking out from him. We'll work on that next week. Watch the takeaway. Nice chest turn. But because he's so upright, he's kind of going to get stuck a little bit there, but not bad. Then he pulls on down through the shot. Now the only problem we see there is that the right hand is under the club too much instead of rotating over. But really, all in all, a pretty decent shot. Let's see if we can get that right knee to wrap around a little bit so that it ends up against the left knee. Not too bad. Okay, we have a pretty good setup here. And really a pretty nice takeaway. Watch how the club kind of almost goes straight up the plane line. Right there, pretty nice. Almost blocks our view of the hands, not too bad. And then he gets right to there, and he's at his top of his backswing. Now what we'd like to see at this point is for the hips to clear around that way. And what he does instead, you're going to see very clearly that he's going to move his shoulders that way instead of the hips. So let's see what happens. There goes the shoulders. So his shoulders are moving way out ahead of his hips, and he gets stuck, and he kind of flips at the ball a little bit. So we just got to get him to disconnect his upper body from his lower body and leave his upper body out of the swing for a little while and try to learn how to move the lower body under the upper body. Easier said than done. Okay, what I did is this time is I drew in the setup plane, his back spine angle. Let's watch if he stays on that. Look at that, staying right steady, very nicely done. Now he's flown his right elbow a little bit, but let's see if he tucks that back down or it comes over the top. It does come over the top a little bit, and that's forcing his head down. So the hands are going to come out a little higher than they were at setup. So they're right there on the way down. Let's go where they were on the way in. See how he's coming in and then over the top. And that's going to cause him to have the right hand under the club and pull it across himself a little bit. So we want him to learn how to reroute the club back down that same swing plane that he used on the backswing. At the setup, we sort of create this reverse K where our spine is going away from the target and our hips are forward, so our lead leg is going a little away from the target. Then we want to pivot around that top tilted to the left part of the K. That one right there. Okay. So watch the takeaway. What he does is instead of pivoting around that takeaway, he actually moves off of that line. So we want him to stay on that particular line so his head stays where it was at setup. He rotates around the K. Instead of getting past it now, his head is moving through and past it, and his lower body isn't catching up. We can see here that the hands are too far away from the body. We like to see the hands hanging a little more down from the shoulders, about right there, so the club is able to swing around an arc created by our forearms. So let's watch what happens on his takeaway. So he takes the club way too far back to the inside because of his hand position. So his club is stuck behind him, and then he's going to come over the top of that yellow line probably. Let's see how he does it. Actually manages to route it back on the yellow line pretty good, surprisingly enough, and turns right through the shot. So some pretty good skill there, but we'd rather see him start with his hands a little lower. Okay, we see a pretty good setup here. The arms are hanging nice and freely from the shoulders, under the chin. The hands are under the chin. Let's watch the takeaway. Very nice. The club head is just blocking our view of the hands very nicely there. Maybe a little lifting up on the way down. On the way up, and then on the way down she drops down nicely. But what happens here is she pulls the club way to the inside. What we'd like to see is that the hands continue down the target line, letting that club stay outside for as long as you can instead of pulling it in so fast, and get to a nice high finish with those hands. Okay, let's look at the shot down the line. We can again see that we don't have that 144-degree angle of the forearms to the golf shaft. The hands are a little high. We want the hands to hang down under the shoulders a little bit more than that, instead of sticking out so much this way. So we've got to work on that. Let's watch this swing. It's taking the club back nicely on plane. Look at that. Right through the hands. Good. On up. Good position there. Drops it right back down. Look at that. It's almost the same plane. Perfect move. Right on through. He's getting a little stuck here. Watch the right foot. See it doesn't come up. But the nice thing about it, when it does come up, it doesn't spin out behind him. The right heel does come straight up. Good enough. Good enough to golf, good enough to play, and good enough to have fun. Okay, we've got the swing plane drawn in there. Let's see how he does. Takes the hands pretty back on that plane, not bad. Now he's right on the plane, up above it a little bit. We've got a little too much collapse right here in the arm. You see that as bending right there. Let's get that out of the way. See if he starts back down on the swing plane, a little bit under it. That's a good thing. Drives his hips into the shot. Now the reason that ball's going off to the right is he hasn't closed the club enough. But other than that, it was a good swing and a pretty decent finish. We're going to begin by blowing up this so you can see your grip. We need the right hand to cover up the thumb of the left hand by nestling the thumb into the pocket that's made from the heel pad and the thumb pad down the lifeline. So I'd be turning that right hand a little bit more over on the top. Let's go ahead and go back to a normal size here. Let's continue the takeaway. Now what's also going to happen here is she's going to tip over a little bit right there. And instead of turning through the shot, she's going to end up scooping the ball. See how she scoops it right there with her right hand. Okay, this golfer is just working on a practice swing, and what you'll see here is that he has a tendency to lift up on his takeaway. I'm going to play this in slow motion. Watch how he lifts up above the yellow line, way above it, and then tries to drive back down to it, but can't quite get there. So everything's staying above the line. So we're going to get him to work a little harder on keeping his posture at setup the same through the entire swing. This is another golfer attempting to use the Mo Norman single plane where everything goes straight down that line. But what happens here is as she gets back, she does a pretty good job of folding that right arm. But then she never straightens it on the way back to the ball. She just kind of pulls it in. Look how right there. She's already hit the ball and she hasn't straightened that right arm. We need her to straighten the right arm and keep the club leg so she gets a little more power so she's not all pulled up inside and tight to her chest. Here's what happens when you shoot directly into the sun in the early morning at Sunny Breeze. We get an Art Nouveau kind of a look here, but let's watch the takeaway as best we can. Hands are moving a little bit before the shoulders turn, not too bad. Getting pretty decent width there. Let's watch the timing as he moves into the shot. There it is. There's a wicked left elbow separating right there. You can see right there that the left elbow is pulling away from the shot because his right hip isn't turning through the shot. See, right now, his hip should be facing his hands. He should have rotated this around a lot more. So that's what we got to work on. Good finish, though.